Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Bug Watch with me. That's me here. I'm over here. Your boy Swissley, aka Davey, aka whatever you like, and I am joined by the UK's #1 Tyranid player. This guy, JP. JP, how you doing?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
I'm not bad.
Oh, that's a dig, that is. Oh.
No.
Because the thing is, as much as we joke about it, I've never introduced myself that way. I'll introduce myself as like, Jonathan, by the way, I play Tyranids. If you don't understand, I'm happy to have a chat, but that's how everyone gets introduced to me.
No, #1 player in Tyranids is getting thrown around a lot nowadays. Anyway,
in the UKTC, let's caveat
in the
that.
UKTC, yeah.
Which is still quite important.
It's still very important.
Ironically enough, I think people find it more. People almost care more about the UKTC rankings than they do about ITC now.
I think
a lot of people.
Yeah, I do. I think I like UKTC rankings more because I know the names on the list.
Yes.
And I'm like, I need to beat that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
yeah. I mean, I've essentially got John Partridge on a piece of paper on my dartboard. Just need to beat that guy.
Next season, mate. Next season.
Next season. Well, let's hope so. And I think I'm like 6 at the moment. I've had a shitty season.
Oh no, you've dropped down.
Have I? I think I'm really far down. I was like 3rd last year or 4th maybe, I think. But yeah, never mind. It's all in the bin. I've got the Warhammer Open. I don't know what it's called actually. But the one at Warhammer Worlds in 2 weeks' time that I'm really looking forward to. I'm still deciding whether I take CSM or Tyranid. Really enjoying Matt Laura's Vanguard Onslaught list at the moment. So we'll talk about that just soon. Spoiler, Matt Laura's in the show. Matt Laura's list is in the show. It's very good. So I am now painting Screamer Killers, which we are having a lot of fun with. And Barb Gaunts, which are a pain in the butt to paint. So yes.
You are a hero amongst Tyranid players.
Well, I hope so. We had some lovely people come to me. I wandered over to an event with Massimo in tow, strapped to my chest, and visited a Savage Hammer event. We had some people pop over and say hello, that they really like the show. So hello to those guys. Really nice to meet you. Yeah. So no, it's all good. I'm trying to think. There's quite a few juicy lists in today's show, actually, guys. So if any of these take your fancy, by all means, give them a whirl. I'm interested in playing a few of them myself, so it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are. Please put them in the comments below. Please like the video as well, if you do like the video. That would be really handy. It gets us to more people, and that would be awesome. So sick. John, what's been going on in your world over the last week or two?
I'd like to say I've been doing more hobby. I finally started. Well, me and my fiance have finally started getting on with some of the monsters. We'll reach back and get it. But it's finally getting my hands on painting the old T-Fex. I've had him sitting around for a long time, and I'm trying to work out if he's what's missing from the list, or whether it's just 190 points of it's a lovely model to paint, and I'll put it on the shelf when it's fully painted, and we'll be very happy about it. The theory goes that it's pretty good, but I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens with it.
Yeah, I think it's a dry brush's dream, that model. Like, I painted it with a dry brush, it was sick.
It's so good, but like we were looking at it, so normally we'll paint with this Vallejo turquoise color when they're quite flat plates, but there's so much detail on this model that it's very good at just picking up the contrast paint, which is what we've been doing with this. I mean, I think it's like Hellion Green. Pterodon turquoise. It's one of my favorite contrast paint colors.
Yeah,
it goes on really
right here.
So most of that for me. I have been keeping up in the local league I've been doing. Currently sat at 4-0 in that, doing quite pardoodly with that. Got to play against Paulie and his infamous, Sky Serpent, for anyone who was on YouTube of Real Space Raiders, fame for all Paulie, and his beautifully painted Drukari. We had a really fun game. Unfortunately, my dice didn't desert me on the one critical combat phase, which is when 10 Incubi and an Archon out of a boat failed to kill the Tyrannifex, which basically won the game at that point. If he kills it, I think I'm still good. I went first and I was able to put a lot of pressure on, but it just meant that this unit of 10 Incubi was stood in the open versus my entire army, and quite happy to go and fight them with Hive Tyrants and stuff. But honestly, one of the greatest guys to play against. Absolutely love it when we get to play against him. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing, keeping up in the league 4-0, trying to see where I want to take Tyranids going forward, trying out some Carnifex, Dakifex broods.
Oh, so good.
I'm waiting for my 3rd Malicept, because I am a true lover of the monsters, where everyone who's taking John Lennon's list with 2, and the Carnifex Brood. I'm like, I just don't think it's enough, so I'm taking 3 Exocrines, 3 Maliceptors eventually, and the Dakafex Brood, because honestly, on UKTC, I think, for me on UKTC, it's the way I think Tyranids best perform, because you have a lot more resilience and a lot more firepower, because a lot of the objectives in UKTC aren't ideal for Gaunts. Either they're in the open, or you just sit a monster tagging into it and you kind of do the same thing. So, because we've seen, I feel like we've seen a lot of the primary denial armies go away, because a lot of UKTC missions are Scorched Earth, so it's hold 1, hold 2, or Purge, so it's hold 1. It doesn't feel like you need. It's much harder to play that primary denial game, and I've just kind of wanted to go for a bit more output to try that out. And so far, it's been working well. But I've got Iron Storm. Iron Hands Iron Storm in the next round of the league, so that's going to be super interesting. Might rock out the casino cannon for a bit of fun.
Very cool, man. Very cool. No, I went to White Bread last weekend, so I played off inspired by UJP. I took Invasion Fleet to 2 RTTs last weekend. I did quite well. I won 4, drew 1, lost 1, so really good if you count both RTTs together, which I am doing to make it sound even better than it was. But so I had a really good weekend with that list in terms of playing. But boy, I just did not enjoy it at all. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Why not? You kill things.
I do
kill things.
It really kills things. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun in that sense. But it's just the dynamism of it, which was a bit disappointing. Guys, where's the chat? We've not getting any chat. Put some stuff in the chat. I want to say hello to you. We want to hear what you guys have got to say about your week in Tyranids. Any thoughts, any interesting vibes that you've got. But for now, we will start the show. I'm going to mess around with this and screw it up again. I think it was this way we do it. So big.
You have way too much fun with this.
Yeah.
Trying to put this
make it so easy, right? I wish there was a way to prepare. There's probably a way to repair this. I just don't know what it is. All right, let's go into the deck.
By the way, the lists this week are wild.
There's so many as well, man. There's so many. Like, we are going to rapidly go through these. In fact, actually, there's so many lists, guys, that did well this weekend. I like to just say to 2 of these lists, you don't get in the show. But well done to them. Like, high five. Like, I can't remember what their names were. Oh my god. But either way, they did great, and high praise for you. But I've put in the list that I thought were the most interesting and vibrant. So we'll see how that goes. And mine, of course, because I've got to talk about myself. Right, are you going to work? Oh, this is a pen. This is not what I thought it was. Oh no. Erase all ink on slide.
What an improvement from last weekend is something of an understatement.
Absolutely. I don't know why I can't go to the next slide. There we go. Oh no! So Sam Pope's list. I forgot to write this in. Imagine. So Sam Pope's run, I don't think was on BCP, so I couldn't find it. So there's an X there for the moment.
I can try and find it. Give me a second. You keep talking. I'll go look at my BCP. See if I can
good man. So Sam's list. If you don't know, Sam just does really well. Like, he's such a good player. He's like the Unending Swarm king of the Swarm, and his list here is very much in the same vein as the ones he's done well at in previous events, especially Warhammer events, like like GW Open kind of vibes. So we've got a Lyra Tyrant, we've got a Tervigan, we've got a Winged Hive Tyrant, we've got 20 Gargoyles, 10 Helmigants, 20 Termagants, a Biovore, 3 Exocrine, a Lictor, a Neurolictor, 22 Neurogons, and 3 Venom Throps. So this really is a very direct list of, we're going to, own the board, take over the board, and we're going to score all the points before you can, and outscore you. If you think in context of how many points are put towards, sitting on objectives, and generally speaking, like winning the points game, there's a lot more than what is in there to kill stuff. So, for example, 3 Exocrines at 135 points times 3, what is that, 405 points. So only like a quarter of his army is built to kill stuff. We've got Wolf Hunt in the chat saying, I hate this kind of gameplay, but it looks strong but not fun. Yeah, I mean, I played a similar list at the Goonhammer Open and got called a fun sponge in chat. when I was live. So yeah, not many people like this style of list, but boy does it win games. It's a hard list to play, so high five to Sam. Like, it's not easy to do this, but I think he's had that many reps. It's second nature for him.
Yeah, I think Sam's literally jumped on the bandwagon. Like, I've jumped on Invasion Fleet and only played Invasion Fleet. Sam's pretty much jumped on the Swarm train and literally just plays Swarm. Like, all of his top results have been Swarm, and I do think that that's the way to win with Swarm, is with those, because the huge amounts of reps. Mostly because one of the big things you'll see with this list is it's very different to a lot of what Swarm lists have been running around since Poland kind of changed the way they're built. Like, if you look at this, and similar with the other one that did quite well, there was another one in the top. It was in the top bracket when it triggered in. There's no Maliceptors, which is a big thing, and there's the triple exocrine's kind of a given. It's basically one of, if not our best data sheet. I think it's top 2 data sheets in the book, behind the Biovore. I think people would say Gargoyles. So let's say there's 3. There's Exocrines, Gargoyles, and Biovores. They're generally in all the lists that work well. I can't guarantee they're in all lists, but they're that good. But there's no Maliceptors in this. There's less of the trickiness in the middle of the board. This is much more going back to kind of that simplistic Swarm of, I'm going to play 80 Termagants and I'm just going to run the Primary Denial game over you, because I think the GW events actually enable the Primary Denial a little bit better than we do in the UK.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think if you've got player terrain, I'm not sure what if it was a GW.
No, it's not. It's GW terrain.
Okay, so GW terrain,
because all the US Open events are GW ones.
It's interesting because it's a large base, right? Large base terrain, but the walls have like gaps in, so you can actually see models through if you're in the terrain piece. So you can't just respawn a Termagant onto an objective, because if the objective's on the other side of the terrain, I think that's quite difficult. So, but still, though, you're absolutely right. I think that 20 squad of Gargoyle coming back if your opponent's not savvy. If the thing is with this, right, the hardest games is when your opponent goes, I'm just going to get everything to 3 bodies and then battle shock, and then wait until you feel battle shock, then kill the unit. Like, a good player can really get around this, but I think Sam is so good at this, he gets around that. So just to talk about what the spiciness is here, and we've got Kelster to go calling it out already. Winged Hive Tyrant, it absolutely loves this meta at the moment, because Mega Nobs and even like boys and Nobs going into this unit, you can give them -1 attack. And then for a free strat, which can also come from the Hive Tyrant, you can give them the unit, or you can give the unit -1 to be hit. Which is just super good, like in terms of keeping 20 Termagants alive. So it really loves that kind of melee Swarm meta, which was threatening with Orcs. I would note there's less bodies here than in previous Sam Pope's lists, in favour of more buffing pieces. So I think that really is just a straight switch of like 20 Termagants and some other bits for the Winged Hive Tyrant. I might be wrong on that, so apologies if I am. And of course, Sam's just doing it again. He knows this so good. So yeah, I think that's the things I would call out. JP, have you got anything? I'm just thinking we have to speed through it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've got his run. So World Eaters round 1. He beat. You have to just bear with this, because he beat Astra Militarum round 2. He beat Imperial Knights round 3. Big win, 99 to 70 odd points.
Yeah,
round
that's
4. He beat Orcs, Ben Durek's Orcs, and Ben's no slouch as a player. That was
nice,
98 to 82. And then he beats just Space Marines. Don't know what the list was. I'm not going to worry about it, but it's some form of power armor. Round 6, he beat Thousand Suns, which is really good. That's quite scary. I think Thousand Suns might be less scary for Swarm, because you have more physical bodies against all their mortal wounds, whereas the monsters just get sniped out by them. Taking D6 mortal wounds on a 20-man Termagant unit is less impactful than taking D6 mortal wounds on a bigger thing. He then played Grey Knights in round 7 in the semi-finals, and then he beat Colin McDade in the final on Orcs, where he won by 6 points, 69-63 versus Colin McDade's Orcs. Again, no slouch on the table. I think for me, the big thing with this is I kind of feel like more and more as we go through Swarm, 20 Gargoyles is all you need. Because realistically, you just wanted to. I could be tempted to take a single unit of 10. I think they're just useful, fast maneuverable pieces. But I'm not going to argue with Sam on this one. The Gaunts are really good. 22 of them is 90 points to screen out your entire backfield. And if you watched his games, and they were on the main Warhammer Twitch channel, You'll see it go in, and it is literally 22 Gaunts blocking out his entire backfield, which against armies with the jump and stuff like that, and 3-inch deep strikes is pretty impactful, keeping them out from the home objective. I love that we've gone back to kind of these more traditional swarmy lists. I do think the nod to the Winged Hive Tyrant is a really big meta call, and I think that within Unending Swarm, the choice of Hive Tyrant is kind of, it doesn't matter so much, and I think that you can look, because you aren't needing to assault move 9 monsters, for example, and you aren't trying to move around horrible ruins in UKTC. The Winged Hive Tyrant is a great meta call, and I love it. Mostly because Mega Knobs then have 1 attack each, which they don't do any damage at that point.
So funny.
It's funny, especially when they're -1 to hit. It's a bit wild.
I think it works on, again, I think the key thing with that, though, as you've just pointed out, like, Winged Hive Tyrant, great, except on UKTC. And I know that some people say they can make it work. I don't believe it.
I'm tempted to try it purely, but again, it depends on how. So the issue we have with is it's a meta call, and I think Sam correctly read the meta for that US Open event. He played Orcs twice in 8 rounds, so 25% of his matchups were Orcs. Both of them were bully boys. I think it's a really, really good meta call. It depends on like how it goes. I think the Winged Hive Tyrant is less good against the Green Tide, but I think it's amazing against bully boys. But it's very terrain specific. I am likely going to try the Winged Hive Tyrant out at some point on UKTC to see how it feels. But I'm worried that my knees or usage of assault keyword from that Walking Hive Tyrant is just too big.
It's just better. It's just better, especially on UKTC where you can get angles, right? Like, I love deploying it on the side with a couple of exocrines, and then you just advance it up the side, and you just get, oh look, I can see the unit on your home objective. That's cool, isn't it?
And I'm also running triple Maleceptor, which kind of, in a way, does a similar job versus Mega Knobs, because if they don't have a War Boss, they're hitting you on 5s, which
just a debuff, right?
Pretty much bounce off of a Maleceptor. Like, they don't die, but they don't do any damage, so it's kind of one of those interesting ones. I think it was a perfect meta call for this one, but that's my thoughts on it.
Well, well done, Sam. Smashing it again, mate. Like, top work. And great earrings and cowboy hats.
Yes.
All right, moving on to I'm not going to lie, my favourite list of the weekend is Matt Laura's Maryland Open Vanguard Onslaught list. This speaks to me in my soul, this list. Man. And anyone who's taken Vanguard Onslaught and doing well with it, I was super hyped to see this. So just to go through it real quick, we've got Death Leaper, we've got a Neuro Tyrant with Neuronode, so that's the redeploy 3 Vanguard Onslaught units after the first turn decided, 2 Winged Primes, 3x5 Barb Gaunts, Biovore, 3x5 Lictor, 2 Neurolictor, 3 Screamer Killers, 2x6 Melee Warriors, 1x6 Death Von Ryan's Leapers, and 6 Zone Throps. So a lot of stuff there. His run was Sons of Sanguinius, good stuff, and then Sons of Sanguinius, good stuff, but a little bit different. Not easy games, by the way, for Tyranids to be just like, they've got a longer threat range than us for the most part, so difficult games. Double Satan Canoptic Court, not an easy game at all. Then Silent King Canoptic Court, not an easy game. He did come undone by the villain of the weekend. We'll see this list again. Triple Land Raider Gladius with 2 Redeemers. And then T-Sons with 3 Enlightened. So, what makes this spicy? Well, everything about this list is spicy. There's nothing here that I think we've seen before, except for maybe obviously the Warriors, but this is all kind of new. We've got Lone Up spam. We've got Battle Shock spam. We've got Fight First spam. We've got Barb Gaunts. We've got triple Screamer Killer. And we've obviously got the redeploy. And I also wish that this list had Hunting Grounds, because if you have seen my Vanguard Onslaught deep dive video, I love that enhancement. I think it's so good, especially now when everyone's teleporting around. So no, this is super cool. I've actually played 4 games with this list because I saw it and I wanted to live it. I wanted to, because it brought me so much joy. I was on TTS like a flash. And I think it's really interesting. I wasn't convinced about Barb Gaunts, but they were great. There's some games where they obviously slow units like Orc units down, which is great. But then you go into something like Tau, where it's all vehicles, and you're like, well, what's the job of these things? And the job of these things is to hug everything. Is to get into things and just hug them. Throw them onto objectives as trading pieces. They are pretty handy. And at 55 points, it's like the cheapest Gaunt you can get. Here's the other thing. They're not Gaunts, right? They're not toughness 3 with a 5 up armor and 1 wound. They have the same profile as Scouts. Like, that's not bad. And it's the same profile as scouts. You lose infiltrate and a missile launcher, right? You gain D6 shots each blast. Strength 5, no AP, bit rubbish. And that's it. Like, that's not bad, man. That's not bad. So they've been pretty good. I did enjoy them, and I tell you what, I think I'd keep them in lists. I'd even consider them in other lists as well, other detachments. There's a bit of a wall of fight first here. So the 3 Lictors, the Von Rein's Leapers, and Death Leaper. You know, so one of the things I think Vanguard Onslaught suffers with is being run over. Like, if your opponent just charges at you and just runs you over, like, that can be a real issue. What you do is you redeploy this line of fight first and go, okay, cool, come at me, bro. The Von Reins can heroic for free, so if they charge a Lictor that's slightly further forward, the Von Reins go, cool, we'll go in there as well. Bang, bang, bang. Really, really cool. Of course, 1,000,000 attacks, so if you get charged by Orc Boys, like 36 attacks, winning them on 4s, not bad. So also very, very good. The Screamer Killers here, I won't lie, I'm struggling to use the Screamer Killers. I'm trying my goddamn hardest. I think, and again, I could be totally wrong here, the most fun and success I've had with them in the games is actually grouping them up, almost like a pseudo old One Eye and Friends kind of package, and dropping 3 -1 battle shock tests into the same unit, and then ripping that unit to bits. I think that's kind of a cool. So you push down the flank, so they can only get so many angles on them to kill them because they die to a breeze, really. And then those 3 battle shock tests, and then you get the +1 to wound, and all of a sudden they chew through something quite quickly. So that's what I found with that. So other than that, I think it's just really interesting. I don't think anyone's beaten Triple Land Raider Gladius, so fair play to him. The rest of it, I think, is tough games, man. That's not an easy run. Don't know what you think, John?
I mean, this list is wild. I am all in for it. I mean, Matt Laura is a phenomenal player. We saw him take down US Open event, the previous one to the one recently that Sam won. He actually beat Sam on his way to winning it with his Hypercrypt Necrons when I didn't mean to leave a monolith-sized space in my deployment zone. That one. So the guy's a phenomenal player. I will profess I actually don't know what this list does into anything that's not kind of the top of the meta, which is why I think he did so well, because I think a lot of the power of Tyranids, and I'll reiterate this to anyone I talk to, I think a lot of our power level is meta dependent, and if you can make the right call with Tyranids into the meta you're going into, you can definitely win events. We've seen that with Sam, but we've seen Matt nearly take down the Maryland Open. We're seeing people get really close to taking it down, and I think it's very much if you have the right reader, and I think this is where more Tyranid than anything else. Like, we're seeing Marine lists, sort of Black Templar, Iron Storm, Sons of Sanguinius, Canoptic Court. They're all very much like the same list, no matter whose hands they're in, and again what the meta is. They have some very sort of specific builds, whereas our builds vary so much depending on the meta. And I think if you make the right meta call with Tyranids, then you're laughing. And I think I found that
People disrespect this list for sure. If they're turning up with, Canoptic Court going, what's this? Screamer Killers, no one uses them. Oh my god, I've been run over.
And then you run 6 wraiths into a Screamer Killer, and it's like you wound on 5s, you have AP1, it has a 2-up save, and it just bounces off. And it's if they don't have the control of the half the objectives, then you are struggling there. It's why we saw like triple Norn Synaptic Nexus and Black Templar spam Horde coming in to beat the Necron Menace before, because Armor of Contempt versus AP1 is really good, and I think that this list is a fantastic metagame call into what you might potentially see, and I think it's really, I honestly think it's super cool.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie about it. I think this is a really, really cool list. I don't think I would have the fortitude to put this on the table and do well with it, but I think Matt has definitely found a little niche here to open up some really interesting.
You can see me take it to the Warhammer Open in Nottingham in a few weeks' time. Probably, unless I take CSM. But I would have to paint a lot of CSM to make that work.
I think it'd be interesting because I think it depends on what the GW terrain is, whether they actually use their US GW terrain. I think it'd be super interesting if it's kind of the traditional GW, just whatever's on the table. Then I
just thought they were going to do the Leviathan pack, right?
No, yeah, they might do, and I think that it depends on what they have access to. I think this list is incredibly good on more sparse terrain because you've got a 6-inch loan up ability, like your 1 CP make a Vanguard Onslaught unit 12, and then if it's already got loan up, it becomes 6. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I think I still prefer, because it is a combat list, right? It's got some shooting in there, the 6 zoanthropes, but I do think you will benefit from more terrain. So I'll give you a little bit of rundown of the games I've played with it. So I've played Drakari, and I got a win against Drakari. Very close though, but again, like first game with it. But the Barb Gaunts were really good and just trading up, which was really handy. I went into Tau, and Tau were an absolute nuisance. The Barb Gaunts were an absolute nuisance. But I think with measuring guns out, I think Vanguard Onslaught actually has a good game into Tau because you just go, okay, where can you move? Where's 12 inches from that? Cool, I'm 12.1. And then you kind of focus on one side. I did go into Grey Knights and really struggle. I think it was a lot of bodies Grey Knights with 3 Dread Knights, and it was. I think I also played it badly, but like really struggled into that, and I got absolutely mullered by Tom Lohman CSM in a practice game for the ITT. So, but that was on. So interestingly enough, that was the only game I played on UKTC. This list won't fly on UKTC. Please do not try it because the Screamer Killers move 8. If you start it behind a terrain piece, it's going to get round the terrain piece in one turn and then die. It was pretty rough. You can rapid ingress them in, but if your opponent's already all over the board, yeah, you got no chance. So yeah, great list here by Matt. Yeah, cool. Let's get on to the next one because
by the way, I love this list. It's really good. It's really
my
cool
favorite list. I think this is it. All right, Amelia Pollard, Mayhem in 3D, playing Synaptic Nexus. So you're getting all the detachments today, guys. I think there's not Crusher or Assimilation actually, but Crusher. There was Larry Oliver's list. He did very well. That's on last week's show. So if you want to see a Crusher list, go and check out that. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. So this is a Synaptic Nexus list, really cool as well, very different. So old One Eye, a Neuro Tyrant, Winged Hive Tyrant with Synaptic Control for the -1 damage. So really nice to see some kind of survivability on that Winged Hive Tyrant. We have a Biovore, 2 Neurolictors, 2 Rippers. We have 1 Exocrine, a Maliceptor, a Non-Assimilator, a Non-Emissary, and a Tyrannifex with acid. With acid, what's it called? Acid spray? Acid?
Yeah, acid spray.
Yeah, got a brain wet. She got a 4-2 here, so she beat Grey Knights, a Custodies list, lost to a lot of Destroyers in a Hypercrypt list, so that's going to obviously cause issues. It's going to be a tough game. We've got mostly good stuff CSM as well. Stormraven Dangles Ironstorm, the bet that was a difficult game, but she managed to come out on top. And Triple Scourge Drakari, which obviously, do the hokey cokey and I'll kill your monster. That's what it's all about. So yeah, we've got some really interesting stuff here. So it feels like having fewer units here is actually beneficial to the list because everyone can stay in Synapse quite nicely. Right. And if anyone wants to venture away, the Neurotime can just point at them. -1 damage on the Winged Hive Tyrant, which is obviously good. And this is a properly defensive stat check as well. So in the same way that a lot of lists I think a lot of Tyranid lists get legs here with being just difficult to get through. Old One Eye riding solo, which is really cool to see. Unsure on any combos with that in Synaptic Nexus, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think he's just there punching face. And overall, just looks like a super fun list.
Sorry, Dave, is that the whole list?
I thought this doesn't look like a lot of points.
It comes out to 1790, about 1,800 points, roughly.
Unless I've missed something. Maybe I have.
Control. It's 1810.
Yeah, maybe I have.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Maybe she did it. Maybe she smashed it at 1,800 points.
It was just super interesting because I was looking going, this doesn't seem like a 2,000 point Tyranid list, but that's fine. I digress. Sorry, carry on.
No, that's all I've got for that, except clearly I've missed something. But, I mean, have you got any thoughts on it? My Synaptic Nexus knowledge is quite limited except to, hey, why am I not doing the Battle Shock models?
2-up save models are really good, basically. Yeah. Synaptic Nexus, 2-up save models are really good because it's the only Tyranid detachment that has access to Armor of Contempt. you have enough Synapse here to randomly do mortal wounds. Again, I think it's a little bit of a call into orcs. Norn assimilators and Norn emissaries are basically, I think, are almost impossible for orcs to kill because you have a 2-up save and a 5-up feel no pain on an objective, and they can't get around really that 2-up save because most of the stuff's AP1. The Tyrant effects with acid spray is great. Exocrines are great. Maleceptor's obviously great as well. The Winged Hive Tyrant, again, I think is a bit of a nod to orcs. And then Old One Eye just slaps really hard, is what I've worked out, having played with the model now. If you can get it into anything, it doesn't die because it's got 2-up save, and also it then has a bucket load of dice to go back the other way. Yeah, it's a super fun list. It's kind of one of those ones where you're kind of erring a little bit back towards the that triple Norn Synaptic Nexus list, trying to really play around the 2-up armor save, trying to make the most out of that. So it surprises me there weren't the DAC effects, Carnifex brood, just going all in on that. But I really want Synaptic Nexus to be good because I think it is really it's very Tyranid-y detachment, like using the brain bugs and the synapse to try and augment your power.
We do have another one coming up in a minute, actually, another Synaptic Nexus. There is something I've missed off this list. There is 2 Maleceptors. So there's 2 Maleceptors. That's
still a few points down, but not as many as we were before.
Absolutely.
We're now
so
20
really
points
cool
down.
Yeah. It was 1,190, so I don't know where the points are missing, but yeah, it was
Don't worry about it.
1,990.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. I think the loss to Triple Scourge Jakari is super interesting. I can see why this list will lose to that. Generally, I find Triple Scourge Jakari quite good for Tyranids, but again, I play a wildly different monster list. But no, I really like the list. I think it's really strong.
Very cool. So just before we carry on, we'll just go to the wall real quickly. So first up, Max Rice, thanks for doing Bugwatch. Really interesting for a kitchen table player like me. You are absolutely welcome, Max. It makes it worth it when people say that. So thank you very much. We've got a lot of love for the Vanguard Onslaught list. We've got Wolf Hunt actually saying, but why not add?
It also has access to the monster shock in Synaptic Nexus, which that's Crusher.
No,
sorry,
Battle Shock, yeah.
They're talking about something in the chat. I was reading, sorry.
We'll get to that combo later. Wolf Hunt, but why not add 1 squad of Gene and Broodlords who can easily kill infantry, even the big guy? I think that overall the list, I think that if you go first, the Von Ryan's Leapers will do that for you. And I think if you go second, you're kind of reactive in the game, and as a result you'll put out the Von Ryans or you'll put out something to trade, but your warriors actually, when I played it last year, my warriors were my final trading piece. I actually think the Screamer Killers are the final trading piece because they've only got an 8-inch move. So once you're trading back and forth, having then 3 Screamer Killers turn up turn 3 or what have you, really enter the game after you've maybe killed their solutions to that problem is really terrifying. So I do think the Gene Stealer Broodlord could maybe work there, but it feels like every unit is trying to actually cause harm except for the Barb Gaunts potentially. So there's not much fat around the edges. I've tried moving a Neurolictor out and putting gargoyles in, and every time I think about it, I'm just like, but it just, there's no real room for movement. So that would be my thoughts on that.
I think another part of that one is it's terrain dependent. I think because Warriors plus Prime is now cheaper than 10 Gene Stealers plus Broodlord.
Yeah.
If you can hide 6 Warriors and a Prime, I think that's where you should go. If you're struggling to hide them, I think the 8-inch scout move on the Gene Stealers really help. Like UKTC, for example, I think Gene Stealers are probably better because you can actively move them from your deployment zone into one of the medium elves and hide them.
Good point, yeah.
Where you can't with Warriors, or it's a lot harder to.
And of course,
further back.
Of course, the other thing is Strength 5 twin linked over Strength 4 not twin linked into Orcs, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You get comparative number of attacks. One has sustained one doesn't. One can get crit 5s. I think that's a different detachment. Yeah. You have sustained 1 on the Prime, so you basically get the same number of attacks. You probably hit with less. Basically, Gene Stealers never miss. They hit on a 2 with a reroll 1. And then,
Warriors hit on 3s, reroll 1. So yes. you on average you get 42 hits, including the sustained.
So it's basically it's 42 versus 40. So if you assume that you're going to roll average, you get 42 from the Warriors, you get 40 from the Gene Stealers, you get full twin linked, and you get one reroll ones potentially with Dev Wound options for a lot more points. And that's why I do think the more and more I look at it, if you can afford to hide your Warriors, I think Warriors are better than Gene Stealers now, purely because they're basically the same points for the unit, and then the Prime is 25 points cheaper.
Yeah.
It's 50
And you might think the
points
Gene
cheaper.
Stealers are faster. They're not really, because the Prime flies over the Warriors as well. So whatever the Warriors move 6, the Prime moves 2 inches in front of them, and its base is like an inch and a bit, which means that actually you've moved 9.
And you have advanced charge, which is really nice.
Yeah. We've got hello from Alberta, Canada. Our league begins this week. Going to try some assimilation. Great stuff, mate. Assimilation is very cool. Check out our interview with Michael De La Torre. It was a very good list that he did, and a very interesting approach to list building. So definitely check that out. We've got Wolf Hunt saying he's deciding between assimilation and Vanguard Onslaught.
Assimilation Swarm.
Yeah, assimilation.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, what? Sorry, what? Cool.
I think
we've
you'll
got
have more
High
fun
Fleet
with
Phil.
assimilation.
High Fleet Phil, one of our custodians of the Discord. By the way, join our Discord. The link is in the comments below. Yes, a very valued member of that community. Cool. All right, let's move on. Boom. Matt Evans at the Storm of Silence. He took Invasion Fleet. We've got Death
True
Leaper
hero.
and War Tyrant. Two winged primes. This is what I like about it. 4 squads of 10 gargoyles. We've got a Biovore, 3 Exocrines, 2x5 Gene Stealers, a Lictor, 1 Maleceptor, 2x6 Melee Warriors, and a Tyrannifex with Acid Spray. His run was Eldari. He did lose to Grey Knights, Salamanders, Necron. Then he beat Salamanders. Then he beat Necrons, and then the final round was against Talon Custodes. So some of the spiciness I've pulled out of this. Here, there's no enhancements, which is really interesting in Invasion Fleet because it has, I think, some of the best enhancements in our book. 4 squads of gargoyles to say, hey, I hope you don't like primary to your opponent. We've got Warriors Invasion Fleet, obviously very good for the reasons that we've just spoke about. So if you mix the lethals with the sustain that they get from the Wing Prime, that's a lot of wounds going through. And as John has been hurriedly painting up a Tyrannifex, we also see it make a return in Matt's list here. So yeah, a very interesting one. We've got some skirmishing units, we've got some punching units, we've got 3 Exocrines because great. Interesting though, with the Exocrines rerolling the ones to hit only synergize with each other. There's not any other shooting here that really has to roll to hit, except the Maleceptor, I suppose. But there's only one of those. So an interesting take on Invasion Fleet. What's your thoughts, John?
It's hard. I'm very interested.
You want to say you hate this, John, don't you?
I don't actually really like it. I've always been interested in running melee warriors in Invasion Fleet because it does give you the ability to stack the buffs where you can afford to take lethal hits because the unit itself has sustain built in with the Wing Prime. You can also give them critical 5s in melee, which just basically just lifts enemy units. 5 Gene Stealers, I love them. They're slightly becoming less good now with Orcs becoming better. I think they're good into Marine equivalent, even Grey Knight equivalent. But with like Eldari, they're great against. But with Orcs potentially and Wraiths coming in, they're slightly less good there. They were really good at like those early skirmishing trades. So for example, like whenever I played against Chaos or anything that had access to Nurglings, they would literally just nuke the Nurgling unit in the middle of the board and go, cool, you're now actually going to have to... say, for example, the enemy took fixed objectives, it's like, cool, well, now you actually have to use actual units to do actions because your main source of secondaries, which is those 3 Nurglings sat behind a wall, is gone because Gene Stealers can easily get their turn 1.
Yeah.
No Hive Turrets in the list is very interesting. We have a lot of very powerful battle tactics, which I quite like having access to double up on. No enhancements. The thing is with enhancements, like outside of the Hive Turrets, they're not that great, the enhancements on other things. Potentially one of them could have taken perfectly adapted. I super love this list though. I'm really kind of curious to how the Warriors were. They're the kind of the 4x10 gargoyles is kind of probably a bit too much. But the 6 melee warriors I'm super interested in. And I think the interesting thing as well that everyone's starting to go back towards the Tyranids with Acid Spray In theory, it's really good against orcs because it does a load of damage, and it kind of gets around the 5-up feel no pain that the horde orcs have because it's damage 2. It's also strength 6, so it wounds them on 3s. It's d6 plus 6 shots. The only issue is, and it also doesn't die in melee because it's the really interesting thing even against bully boys is because it's T12. All their twin kill swords wound on 4s. Their kill swords are only strength 12, so you wound on 4s. You've got 2-up save, which basically means you bounce most of the damage onto it. And it's not bad into other matchups where you actually have anti-tanks. You get to blank one of the main wounds. I'm just not sure personally acid spray effects is the way to deal with orcs because I do wonder if just DAC effects are just the way
they're just so much better.
And I've played them once now and admit I took them into Drukhari where they're not their best matchup and they kill so much stuff. Like, for example, there was a 10-man unit warriors with the full Archon and caught the Archon, so all the lethal hits killed one Carn effects, and then they all die on the way back. It's kind of like the amount of output that unit has, including being super tanky, because it's a 2-up save, 5-up feel no pain, can make it really difficult for enemies to kill it. And I just wonder if Invasion Fleet is now geared to be more of the monster list, and this list may have been better being a Vanguard list, for example.
Oh, you took my thunder away. I was about to say, John, what do you think the chances are that this person accidentally chose Invasion Fleet instead of Vanguard Onslaught? Because for me, this is a Vanguard Onslaught list.
I agree. I think that.
Hey, what do we know? This guy went 4-1. So
exactly. What do we know? If I was going to run this list, I would put him on Vanguard Onslaught, but I'm not going to turn it down. I also love that all of these lists have Death Leaper still, because people.
He just makes all the lists.
People can hide him apparently. I don't know how they manage it because I've dropped him from my list because, and again, we solely play on UKTC. Like 90%, 99% of my game is on UKTC, and that model is very hard to hide and to get decent value out of versus a Lictor, for example. But I really like that everyone's taken him still because the model is like awesome. I love the model, but I've just been found it's very hard to utilize properly.
Hey, speak for yourself. I am for the next 2 months almost exclusively GW terrain because I've got this event in for GW, and then I've got Barcelona, which will be GW terrain in July. So I am trying to get my head around how the maps work. So we'll see. But it's so much better. I used to love UKTC. Now, honestly, whenever I play on it, I roll my eyes. But hey ho.
Well, I've not played on anything else, so I'm kind of still living the rose-tinted glasses life.
Well, I think there's a gap in the market for someone to run a GT with GW terrain in our area because you think you go to every event has got UKTC terrain. Have you opened one up with GW terrain in the south of England? I think it'd be very popular. But hold that thought. Maybe it's something.
It's getting older, the terrain, isn't it?
Oh well, you see, maybe there's an angle.
Never say never.
We'll see.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Absolutely. So this was apologies for this one. There's not much insight gone into this to start with because this was one of the ones I found this morning that I missed when I was doing the slides yesterday. So this is Gordon Sunday. He was at the Alberta Classic with another Synaptic Nexus list. This is the second of 3 we're going to look at, guys. So this has, as John pointed out, Death Leaper. Every list. We've got a Neurotyrant, which almost every list. The Neurotyrant does have Psychostatic Disruption, which is the 12-inch deep strike. And I think once per game, you can say, I wouldn't like you to come in on reserves. And then on a 4-up, that happens. Something daft.
Yes. Yeah, it's a 4-up.
So, yeah, I don't like paying points for things that might happen, but 12-inch denial is pretty good.
Like
How many points is that, John? You've got your wrap up, right?
Good question. Let me have double check on the app.
I'm wondering how many points it is compared to 11 Neurogons.
It's 30 points.
30 points.
30 points?
For 15 points more, you can have
what?
11 Neurogons.
It's 30 points.
Yeah. Yeah. No thanks.
What?
But hey, Gordon took it to success here. So he then had 2 squads of 5 Barb Gaunts. Again, we've already spoke a little bit about this, but very good in the meta. We've got a Biovore, 2 Maliceptors here, 3 Neurolictors for that wonderful synergy with Synaptic Nexus on the Battle Shock stratagem. 2 non-emissaries because they have synapse, so they will go into the middle, stand on the objective, and then enable you to do that to run that strat within 12 inches. Because here's the thing, a Neurolictor can trigger a Battleshock test. You can fail it, but then unless you have something with Synapse within 12 inches of that unit, you can't use the stratagem. So, you kind of throw that all away. We then have triple Rippers, which is very cool, and 2x6 Zoes. So this is very much, for my money, a shooting platform that moves into the middle objectives and says, cool, try and get me off. And if you can't, I'll just shoot you to death with all my stuff. You've got the Neuro Tyrant at the back, just basically owning the back of the board. And anyone coming outside of 12 obviously can be overwatched by his 18-inch Flamer, which is very nice. Barb Gaunts to slow your opponent down as well, which is very cool. So yeah, overall, and of course the meta pick. So overall, really interesting. I think this shows the breadth, some of the breadth and width of Synaptic Nexus. As you said, it's a really interesting detachment. And this is only the second way that we've seen that you can play it. We're about to see a third way.
Yeah, I'm super interested, by the Synaptic Nexus list, because as soon as Zoanthropes go in the list as no Walking Hive Tyrant, I can't look at them in the same
or
way.
Exocrine.
Or Exocrine. So the main reason I'm super, again, please take this with a pinch of salt. It's my opinion. It's not shared by anything else, and it is very much dependent on the metric UKTC. I can't do 6 Zoanthropes because they move 5 inches, don't have assault weapons, and the only place I like them is Vanguard because you can pick them up and redeploy them. Outside of having a Walking Hive Tyrant, these lists don't, and I'm kind of unsure to how effective 6 Zoanthropes is when you can't move them anywhere. I
think what they're doing is, I think they have to come in from the reserve. So 2 squads of them would be 400 points, and then you add the Rippers on top of that, but they have deep strike, so you've got like 500 points in reserve there. I kind of think that's how it's going, because you can bring them in, you can spend the strat to get the 6-inch reroll ones thing. So you spend that. But against one unit, then you've got 2 squads of 6 Zoes. If that unit is like, I don't know, 1 million points worth to kill, you could reroll ones against that one thing. So maybe they're there to get rid of the anti-tank that might kill the Norn. So they come in, blast whatever it is, then get chopped to bits by chaff or boys or something. I think that might be how it works. But
so my big thing now, again, and it's all linking back to Zoanthropes, is how big Green Tide is. Against Bully Boys, I don't think they're very good. So I don't think you get enough shots. I don't think enough damage.
They do burst. I tell you what they do. They do burst a truck.
They do blow up a truck. But going back to the other thing. So for example,
all 6 of them shooting twice blows up a truck.
So for example, at the ITT past weekend, I know you don't like teams, and we'll try to skip on from this one, but there was a number of top teams, Vanguard Tactics, and at least one other team took Green Tide Orcs. 6 Zoanthropes annihilate Orc Boys. 63 plus however many, probably it's about 24 shots. Is 63 plus 24 is a lot of firepower, and it's hitting on a 3, wounding on a 3, and it blows stuff up. Because it's D3 damage as well, so you can just...
So the feel no pain is nothing,
Exactly, the feel no pain. Exactly. Even though it's a 5 at feel no pain, if you roll 3 wounds on something, it's generally going to disappear. Especially if you shoot an Exocrine beforehand, you're rerolling ones, you just blow stuff up. My only thing is that because they're so slow, it's how efficient you can be on the train piece, which is why I think Vanguard Onslaught plays them incredibly well, because you can bring them on at that 24-inch range, where you just bring them on 24 inches away, blow up an Orc Boy unit. And then they're generally not going to die on the way back because Orc shooting isn't that impressive. So you pick them up and you go again. You pick them up and you go again. And you just get to play this really powerful bounce game with them. All the other detachments don't have that same capacity to keep them safe. So it's going to be really one of those interesting things where, in theory, Zoanthropes are one of our best answers to Orc Boys, but they're incredibly slow. They're not massively resilient to the rest of the meta.
Yeah, I think they're very narrow in their use cases, and I think that's what holds them down. One thing that's interesting about this list, it's very easy to remember your armor save. Everything except for the Barb, Gaunts, and Rippers have a 4-up invul.
Yes.
So that's also quite a nice little... if it's not a 4-up invul, it's either a 3-up or 2-up save, I think, except for the Zoes, which have a 5-up armor save, because that's a meme. But yeah, overall, well done, Gordon. That was a really strong performance there, with only 1 loss to World Eaters.
Love it.
All right, moving on. Boom. All right, Eric Lathuris.
Love it.
Yes, this list is cool as well. So this is my second favorite list of the weekend. So Eric is a very amazing player. He's a team player. He's generally plays on teams. He's not really done singles recently. He's made a venture back into singles with this list, which is a kind of evolution of that teams list. So that teams list was absolutely bodying elves and other one wound armies quite significantly to their surprise, because it was just so bizarre. It had Morlocks, it had Parasites of Mortrex in it, it had all these kind of weird janky stuff, and people were just like, what does this do? Having tried to play that list in singles myself, I found it so hard to play. This, I could see really leaning into singles a lot stronger, and actually, Eric's done amazing here. Eric plays with a brain twice the size of most of ours, so it's quite easy to see how he does this. Right, let's talk about this though. So he's got Death Leaper. He's got a Neurotyrant with Power of the Hive Mind for the +1 strength, +1 AP to its gun, which makes it almost a Redeemer Land Raider, which is pretty cool. We've got a Tervigan with Synaptic Control. The Tervigan's got -1 damage. We've also got a Winged Prime with the Dirge Heart of Cerberus, which is a -1 leadership aura within 9 inches, which is also very good. We have 10 Hormigans, 20 Termagants, 20 Termagants. We've got the Biovore, 2 Exocrine, a Maliceptor, 3 Morlocks, 2 Neurolictors, and a Pyrovore. His run was he beat Tau Monkar, he beat Admech, Drakari, Bully Boys, and Chaos Knights. Apologies, this is one I did this morning, so I've not been able to really dig into the list that he played. So the synergies from the old versions of this list really, I believe, worked around the stratagem for mortals. So if you don't know what that is, whenever your opponent's unit fails a battle shock test, you roll 6 dice. If they're within 12 inches of a unit with Synapse, you roll 6 dice. On 3 ups, they take a mortal wound for each one. So really powerful. The amount of times I've rolled 5 or 6 3-ups with that is just unreasonable. It's very, very good. So that kind of points at a lot of things in the list. So especially the Tervigan. So you won't believe this maybe, but in previous versions of this list, the Tervigan ran without Termagants. And that's because it's the cheapest, toughest thing you can put on an objective and has Synapse. So you can get it onto the objective. It's OC5. Anything comes near you, you make it take a battle shock. It fails because it's got -1 trigger from Death Leaper, maybe -1 from the Dirge Heart, and all of a sudden they're taking D6 mortals because it's within 12 of the Tervigan. You've also then got a Maliceptor which has Synapse, and you've got the Neurotyrant as well. So I think you have to play quite aggressively with the Neurotyrant to make this work. We've got the Morlocks. So if you don't know what Morlocks do, they come up within 9 inches of your opponent's units. There's no way to jank it. It has to be 9 inches away. But everyone within 12 inches, every one of your opponent's units within 12 inches, you roll a dice. On a 2 to 4, they take D3 mortal wounds. On a 5 or 6, they take a flat 3 and take a battle shock test. So of course you've got all those minuses maybe knocking around as well, because if you're a big brain player like Eric, you've already thought of where it's going the turn ahead of time, and then all of a sudden you're doing those mortals again. So it's finding out how many times can I push that button every single turn. You've got Neurolictors do it, you've got the Neurotyrant, which gives -1 to leadership on the Shot of the Warp. You're just pressing that button as many times as possible, and you could do so many mortal wounds with this list. I think where I struggled with it when I was playing it is you just got run over. Your opponent just moved into the middle of the board, and your Morlocks can only do so much. Morlocks are amazing when they're supporting other monsters, but as their main barrier, I found it really hard. So you've got the Termagants that are going to move on to the middle objectives, and just hold that. You've got Hormigans that can just steal and deny your opponent's primary, a little bit cheaper than a Gargoyle as well. And then you've got everything else, which is trying to either shoot or do mortals to your opponent, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Have you got any thoughts on that, JP?
I think it is very much the big brain player army. If you can set these up, you do so much damage. It's unbelievable. The Winged Prime is a good target to carry the Dirge Heart because it moves 12 inches plus a flat advance move. So you can set up the way, again, because of the way that it all triggers, you move it far enough forward to get within 9 to give it -1. You then pop up the Morlock. Then that does mortal wounds, causes a battle shock at -1. They fail it, and obviously then have the range to trigger it and just do more mortals. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I do think this army potentially can just get run over if it's not able to move out.
I think it did, but I think the Termagants, I think they kind of hold that back a bit.
Yeah.
I think they hold back the tide, so to speak.
Yeah, and because the Tervigon itself is incredibly hard to kill, -1 damage is -1 damage is really powerful, and then it just being a 2+ save, 16 wound T12 model, T11 model that then allows that regeneration of Gaunts. The Gaunt Carpet is really powerful. Hormagaunts are great for move blocking. They're 20 points cheaper than a Gargoyle unit that just sprint across the board and do it. I really like this list. I don't own 3 Morlocks, so I'm probably never going to get to try it, but I'm super interested in your feedback, Davey, when you do put this on the table because of your love of Morlocks.
I've actually had about, I want to say 8 games with this list.
I think...
well, not with this, with the old version of it, sorry. And it's like I played it in the league and got battered 3 times with it because I just couldn't defend against aggressive armies. I say I got battered. They were all narrow losses, to be fair, but it was all basically losing on primary. I could score secondaries for days. I was
going to say a big thing for this is none of the apart from potentially Bully Boys, none of these armies are aggressive to that extent where you can get run over. Chaos Knights are, but Chaos Knights can be quite susceptible to mortal wounds. They do have decent leadership, but with some minus buffs, then they don't have very good leadership, and you can just do a load of damage to them.
You know what Chaos Knights don't like?
Interesting one,
Sorry to interrupt, but do you know what Chaos Knights don't like? Termagants with lethal hits.
Just wounds, right? It's just piles of wounds. Yeah.
I've just rolled 2 handfuls of dice and take 8 wounds.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much that, and I do think that Eric is an incredibly good player. This army is incredibly hard to play. Potentially had a really good run as well. I think the matchup into sort of Tau, who don't have good leadership, Admech, who have a load of 1 wound bodies, which is what you're craving to play against. Drukhari, same thing. Bully Boys, leadership's not great, so you can try to play around the Bully Boys turn where they don't have all their Feel No Pains online. And then Chaos Knights is kind of like, just move block your entire army and you could only move 2 guys through. Good luck playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I love it. I love these lists. I think I want Synaptic Nexus to be good because it's to me it's the most Tyranid detachment, and it's just some of the most fun stuff you can do.
Absolutely. All right, moving on. Oh, look at this guy.
Oh, who's this?
Who's this guy?
Who's this scrub?
So this is me, and I went to 2 RTTs. I've stuffed them together to equal a GT. I just wanted to quickly go through it. So I went through the list last week, but I forgot to write Carnifexes on there. Real quickly, we've got a High Titan with Perfectly Adapted. We've got an Old One Eye with 2 Carnifexes, 10 Gargoyles, Biovore, Exocrine, Maliceptor, 5 Gene Stealers, 1 Lictor, 2 Morlocks, and a Parafor. So I think this list generally is similar to what I think John's moving around with, but I think where you get to the end of it is essentially, what do you do with the points that I've used on Morlocks? And maybe a Pyrovore and maybe the 5 Gene Stealers. The rest of it is kind of, broadly speaking, we see a lot of list base on that. Maybe the Gargoyles as well, actually. But you start off with that triple Exocrine, maybe 2 to 3 Maliceptors, a Biovore, all One Eye in the Hive Titan. It's then where do you go from there? So you have chaff units which you throw in. So I've picked here 5 Gene Stealers, a Lictor, a Pyrovore, and the Gargoyles. I love the Gargoyles. They just do stuff, and then the Lictor is just really good. What I found was that in this list, I just played with all those assets very defensively because they're the only things that can go through walls and do actions for me. They're the only things that can sneak onto objectives early doors. So yeah, I found that. I did find myself killing stuff. I found the Morlocks to be awesome. Like I don't want to big them up. I mean, they were just good. Like they came up, did mortals to people. People had no idea what was happening, even though you explain it to them. They're like, "What? Why am I taking all these mortal wounds? Why are 4 units taking 2 or 3 mortal wounds?" I'm like, this is what it is. And then once they go into something with 16 attacks and 6s are sustained or 16 are lethals, all of a sudden you've got a bunch of hits, a bunch of wounds going through at -2/1 damage. So it kind of it diversified the damage profile of what my Exocrines and Maliceptors were doing, which I really liked. The Carnifexes and all One Eye, amazing. Just so good. Every single game, all the time. My games, just to quickly run through them, I got a draw against Sons of Sanguinius, kind of a combined arms list. This was my first game of the weekend. I was a little bit like okay, I haven't played this list really yet, so let's try and make this work. And it was a really fun game. Swung back and forth, but 87-87, really strong one. I then went into Chaos Demons against a very good player, Byron Sidhu. Byron, my apologies. That's just because I've played Sid in the past. Byron was awesome. Like, he's just such a good Demons player. He did amazing at the weekend at the teams tournament as well. But at this one, he really took the early offense on me. So he got Be'lakor in, he brought in the Greater Demons, and I was like, oh god, here we go. So I had to turn to kill the Greater Demons, and I didn't, and then that was it. So game over from there. I went into Votann Good Stuff and got a narrow win there. My opponent had shocking rolling and shocking secondaries, so there's a bit of that. So I went there with that one, that RTT 1-1-1, which I was quite pleased with because it was a quite competitive field. The next event wasn't called Fierce Fury, it was the MK Outriders. But our first game was into a Stomper and Gorkanaut. I was actually terrified of this because I was like, how do I get through all this? But it fell over a turn. The Gorkanaut fell over turn 2, the Stomper fell over turn 4. And then after that, I just couldn't score, and I just swept up the points after that. But a great lad, one of my favourite opponents of recent times. He's just a really nice guy. Then I went into another Orc player, all the Knobs and Mega Knobs and Bully Boys, which I was really worried about that game, but man, do Maliceptors do work in that game. He charged into the Maliceptors. The Maliceptors went, what are you going to do? You're just going to not hit me. And then, yeah, like we all One Eye just like spent turn after turn bodying Mega Knobs, like just smack, you're dead, smack, you're dead. War Bosses, you're dead as well. Like, he was just so good. So that was great there. And then obviously all the damage through was pretty nice into that as well. It was a case of delaying the war, right? So I said I would set up. I was like, okay, how far can I be away? Right, you've got an 11-inch charge, 10-inch charge. You've got the stratagem to +2 it or whatever. Do you want to do the war now? And they're like, oh god, yeah. Well, I don't know. And if they war early, that's really good because they're going to war turn 2 and 3. If you can just kind of hold that off, like hold that, make the money fight gargoyles or something, then the rest of the game you'll just shoot the Mega Knobs, they'll die. You'll just shoot the boys, they'll die. And it really, I'm not saying it's easy. A good player will work around that, but that would be my advice on how to do that matchup. And then I went into Sisters with triple Exorcist. Strength 10. I forgot there was strength 10, man. D6, what is it? D6 shots? Strength 10 minus 2.
Something.
Minus 2 or something. 3 D6 damage? Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah,
really and you can just choose a number of damage from your dice? Oh, that's scary. And triple Castigator, which is also terrifying. Strength 10. My ex-screens weren't a fan of that. Luckily enough, my kind of strategy going into that was get rid of the chaff. As soon as the chaff are gone, he's probably going to sit back with the tanks and try and shoot you. And that's what happened. So I just killed the chaff and then sat on objectives, and that was it. So no, a good game, and overall a good weekend. I think it was really the learnings for me about this list is I play it just so differently to JP. I don't want to put your words in your mouth, but I'm quite a defensive player, but I believe you play this very aggressively. So I very rarely walked past the halfway line of the battlefield.
Wow, yes.
Because I just didn't need to, because like I just want to sit on my objective, score primary. So I would put 3 monsters or 2 monsters on each objective and say, these are mine. You can go and have yours. I'm going to shoot you from over here if that's okay with you. And that's kind of what I did. The Morlocks were really good to kind of come up and my opponent pushed a flank. I've got his 2 Morlocks to fight that flank back, which was really nice, between battle shocking stuff on occasions and doing mortal wounds on occasions. But actually just having another 14 wounds there with 16 attacks doing stuff was really, really good. I did want more chaff in this list. That was the only thing. I felt there was a lot of times where I wasn't scoring secondaries, which was a little bit like, oh, come on. But yeah, that was my weekend. Cool. We'll get on to and big shout out to last week's show. So this is May's roundup of lists. There's 2 more lists that you could go and see us talk about 2 weeks ago. Larry Oliver's Crusher Stampede list and Devin Watkins' Simulation Swarm list. to round out every detachment, I believe, which is quite handy.
Yes, it does. It does actually round out every single Tyranid detachment.
Yeah. So hey, go on, win games, guys. There's no excuses anymore. And that, guys, is the end of the list. So that is a bumper session of lists there. I hope you did enjoy it. I'll go that way. So yeah, any kind of ending remarks, JP?
I think Tyranids are well positioned. I think and this is no down to anyone out there, I think we've seen a lot of very competent players jump on Tyranids the last couple of weeks, which I think has increased our win rate significantly. I think if we were to see these players jump off, we will likely see the win percentage go down. Mostly because Tyranids can be an incredibly well-played faction, where people are playing it for the fun of the game, for the love of the game, for the hobby, and also people play it to win tournaments. And generally, we've seen the top players not playing Tyranids because they don't think they're viable to win majority tournaments. Like we don't see like any of the Team Ignite team or any of the England team or any of the Scotland team jumping on Tyranids for a UKTC event because they're not deemed to be strong enough to win a tournament because they have too many swingy matchups or flip matchups where you can just lose if something goes wrong. I think that we've seen, obviously, Sam taking down one of the biggest events this year in the US Open, which is a huge thing. But I think Tyranids, the more and more I play, the more and more I feel they're very susceptible to terrain and metas. And I think the meta over in the UK and the terrain set we play on is slightly more difficult for Tyranids. But I also feel that the meta's also come into a place that's quite good for us. The fewer the vehicles that are out there, the better it is for us, or the lighter the vehicles that are out there, the better for us. Because Exocrines and Maliceptors are great at taking down T8, T9 vehicles, which we see in the likes of Drukhari and Orcs, but they don't like T10, T11 vehicles where you're wounding on 5s and you're having to rely on the lethal hit side of it. So I think it's been a big thing. I think Old One Eye is really starting to become like a default pick for Invasion Fleet because of the sheer output that unit has, even though it's very expensive. But I'm liking where Tyranids are at the moment. I think, as you can see from the thing there, all detachments are viable. Some potentially more viable than others in the average player's hands. But I am really enjoying where the meta is at the moment. Where the game is, obviously, we've got to look forward to all the new missions cards coming out prior Nexus. So that's going to be super interesting to see what happens with those rules and how, if that changes the way we build lists, or whether you could just simply slam the same list you've got at the moment. But I think if armies go to take more battle line, then Tyranids get better because our battle line does trade quite well. Or some of our chaff killing units, like Gene Stealers, are great at picking up battle line units of other armies. So I think it's going to be super interesting with that. And obviously, we've still got another data slate to come before the next event, the next big event I'm at, which will be the event at Tabletop Republic, same as the First Fury you went to, which is a 2-day event in July. So we'll have another data slate by then. So hopefully it'll be interesting to see where Tyranids go. I am very much aware that the further this goes on, we're not getting any buffs in the next data slate outside of some potentially specific monsters that aren't seeing much play. But I would expect to see Tyranids in this current meta continuing to do well and probably not getting much love in the next data slate, would be my honest opinion.
Well, my kind of thoughts are, you pulled out something very interesting prior to the show. All the lists we've looked at today are from America.
Across the pond. Across the pond.
So one thing I would say is, I think Tyranids play better on other terrain types. I think on UKTC there is stuff you can do to make them work. I think it's harder, to be quite honest. But it is what it is. I'm sure the UK Tyranid player scene will find solutions to that problem. It probably involves Exocrines and Maliceptors. It
probably does.
Yeah, just to finish up, we've got Wolf Fun saying thanks for the show. You are absolutely welcome. It's our pleasure. And Waral1, I'm trying to learn Endless Swarm. Where can I watch some sweet gameplay? I would recommend the Warhammer Twitch channel, and you can watch Sam Pope do it. If you want more lore brain, twice, yeah. And there's pretty much, you can click on any Warhammer open event on their Twitch channel, and you'll see Sam Pope in the last game or the last couple of games playing Endless Swarm. You can also, if you want to see a smaller brain version of Sam Pope, you can see me play it on Hellstorm, the Hellstorm channel from their last event, which was, I think, March or something. And I play into Ironstorm Dark Angels with a Raven, Storm Raven, and it was a good game. It's don't expect much action. Nothing. Someone in the chat described it as nothing has happened for 5 turns, which was quite funny. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, guys. That's the show. A jam-packed show of list reviews today. We are thinking about doing a tier list. I don't want to do one Tyranid tier list. My opinion is that's daft. You have 5 different detachments which value each unit separately. So perhaps we do an invasion fleet. Perhaps we do an onslaught. We know that.
Yep.
Looking at my video views, our viewers love Vanguard Onslaught. So that might be the one that we do.
I think we're doing that.
I think we're doing that first. Especially if I do.
I think invasion fleet's going last, if I'm honest.
No, man.
Yes.
Like over 50% of Tyranid players for invasion fleet.
Right,
We're doing that one. We are doing that one. I think the last one will probably be Crusher or Assimilation because no one really plays them that much. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's the end of the show, guys. Please comment. Please come and join our Discord and chat with us. Only cool people, please. And of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's loads of great content on. The guys do stuff about other factions. And we have our 6++ show on a Tuesday evening, which is super funny, super chill, and a bit more laid back. And even if you're one of those weirdos that like Old World, Ed started doing Old World stuff where, you know, if that's what you're into, sure. Great. Well, have a great week, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks, maybe earlier if we're feeling spicy. Have a good one. Bye.